Giorgia Meloni, an astrological portrait by Ciro Discepolo. Eagles fly higher than everyone else. This is a fact net of exaggerated micro-specifications of an ornithological nature. I have never hidden my recent sympathy for this character, whom I previously did not know almost at all. My sympathy is due primarily to the fact that I recognized in her stars the eagle that is within her, an eagle I have not identified in any international political leader for decades. In her stars, other identification cards do not interest me in the least. On the eve of her election as Prime Minister, and even after, and even today, the opinion of the entire opposition has been unanimous. She is a mediocre and fascist politician. Conversely, international leaders of every geographic longitude and press organs, including those most aligned with the left, such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, Libération, El País, and many others, continue to dedicate covers to her, point to her as a great international leader, and signal her as an example of a statesman to be imitated. So much for normal political dialectics, which, however, with each passing day crashes against the free thought of many brilliant minds on the left. Beginning with Massimo Cacciari and accompanied by a truly long list who recognize her as an outsider. Why would she be an outsider? First, because we are talking about a Capricorn with a ton of Saturn on her head and a mental direction from the 6th house, the Sun. But then, are we simply saying that Giorgia Meloni is a good accountant? Not at all. Meanwhile, by law, in a future society where astrology had the weight it deserves, would have it written into the Constitution that the leaders of the country should be chosen from among Capricorns and compensated Cancers, possibly with strong Saturnian values, but also with indicators of success and with 0 bad values in fearsome houses like the 7th and the 8th. Remember the charts of Hitler and Mussolini? But why Capricorn and more Capricorn? Compensated Cancer? Because they need to be praised, and they candidate themselves by default to be workaholics, tireless, and all of one piece. If they then did not have threatening positions in the 7th and 8th houses, even the danger of dropping bombs on Serbia would be avoided. And if we were to add a Jupiter in the 10th house in trine to the Sun, well, in that case, adding also the pragmatism of the most important sign in this map, Virgo, we would have exactly this birth sky and no other. So will she be a saint? Will they build a second Colosseum for her? No, but she will certainly be remembered in history as one of the best politicians to have governed Italy. Is it only a coincidence that the whole of Europe has chosen her model to oppose wild immigration? And is it always only a coincidence that even the current American leader is trying to ride Article 5 of NATO to find an exit path from the war in Ukraine? However, I repeat, personally, I am interested in the judgment of the stars, and since they allow me to address them informally, I can confirm to you that in the sky before us the stars are the right ones. I condemn those colleagues or students, male and female alike, who despise Giorgia Meloni, but they would do the same with many other leaders, only because they refer to banners opposite to their own. And here, let me enter only for a moment truly into a political discourse. I have lived for decades the drama of female and male friends whom I love, who, regardless of any doubt, suffer compression within a party where they, who were born sincerely Christian Democrats and Catholics, are forced to live with presumed adopted sons of Che Guevara contemporary politicians, ready to fire upon anyone who opposes communism in Cuba or South America. And here I close the political parenthesis and return to Giorgia, who worries me not a little regarding her health. Meanwhile, has any one of you made even a rough calculation of the hatred she must swallow every day? What does that have to do with it? It has everything to do with it. Perhaps our Prime Minister does not know the power of the homeopathic remedy Natrum muriaticum, and therefore does not know that it would help her immensely to eliminate rivers of poison that enter her circulation every day, not to mention the eyes as powerful as musket shots. We've reached her targeted birthdays. In your opinion, is she to be appreciated or condemned, given that she practices them quite evidently and almost in the light of day? This, too, is a sign of intelligence, the good intelligence that comes to her from the Mercury-Mars conjunction in Capricorn. I'm certain that even in this she applies the maxim of John Fitzgerald Kennedy: ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for it every day. Let's look at her solar revolution, noting first that the birth time published on astro.com reports an AA Rodden rating on the precision of her birth time, and therefore the latter should be quite correct, though still rounded. Let's start by saying that the Italian one, her solar revolution for Rome, would have been truly deadly for her and for our fellow citizens. Ascendant in the 12th house, Saturn tight to the MC, and a stellium with Mars in the 7th. Not even an horoscopara, cheap horoscope reader from Chiocchiaria, could have advised a worse one. The one in Tokyo, now known to everyone and which I report to you again, avoids the pearls I just mentioned, and for this reason alone deserves much credit. But above all, avoiding any serious violation of the 34 rules, it adds these precious elements to the whole. A non-tight Jupiter-MC conjunction. In fact, at these degrees of distance, Jupiter is not strong, but it is not nothing either. It makes Uranus fall into the 8th house and not the 7th, which would be very dangerous for breakups even in the family, in the political field. It makes the Sun, Venus, and Pluto fall on the cusp of or into the 4th house. And we know that Giorgia Meloni is about to announce a 10-year plan for social housing, which she cares about very much, and we Italians even more. Regarding Saturn and Neptune, I will return shortly. Now let's say that with some small cinema theatre trick, the Premier had wanted to glue Jupiter to the mid-heaven. It would not have been difficult for her to land at 1 p.m. in Tokyo, and then move with a short flight to Oita or the surroundings in western Japan. But she would have risked too much. How could she have controlled journalists, photographers, and simple curious people around Tokyo Airport? Furthermore, there is a second reason which, at this point, I believe was a good choice, if it was a choice and not a surrender. I premise that, as everyone can verify, throughout my life I have gone into apnea, even to the bottom of the ocean, to avoid putting malefics in the 5th house, especially since I discovered that this house strictly concerns the wife as well as the children. However, the Prime Minister must reason she is obliged to do so, as if she were the mother of all the citizens of the state and not just of her little girl. And in that sense, in my opinion, it was better for her to leave this sky than to obtain another with Jupiter very tight to the MC, but with Saturn and Neptune in the 6th house. Said, in fact, a little further up that I fear for her health, because the commitment to which she is subjected is exaggerated, as is the hatred by the ton that she collects every day of the week. Furthermore, those two in the 6th would not have signified only health, and could have seriously compromised the relationships within her coalition. a risk no less serious for someone who is about to achieve the record for the longest-lived government of the Republic, which translates into greater confidence of the international markets for Italy and more concrete wealth for it. The reason for her Ginevra are quite relative, and if the child is substantially healthy, small disturbances or small problems during the year will not be a drama. Furthermore, and let's not forget, Ginevra also left for her targeted birthday. There remains only one point that would have deserved serious reflection. Neptune on the cusp. Neptune in the fifth is assimilable to Saturn in the fifth, and will concern more the mother's worries toward the daughter than actual problems for the latter. Let's say, then, that the only thing that would have been useful to correct is precisely that cusp of Neptune, anxieties from government allies. But on this it would have been very difficult or impossible to intervene,